Om Partaya Pradibodhitam
Bhagavatam
Bhagavatam Narayana
Narayana
Swayam
Swayam
Yasena
Vyasena Krititam
Puranamuna
Puranamuna
Madhye
Madhye Mahabharatam
Mahabharatam Dvaitam Savarshini
Tvaitam
Bhagavati
Bhagavati
Ashtadashatyayini
Ashtadashatyayini Ambadvam
Ambatvam
Anusantatami Bhagavad
Bhagavad-gīte
Gita Bhagavad-dveshini.
Dveshini. I think we have to start at all this is to establish.
What is that?
Second, that
You have to
is.
start. Ishvara cannot be a separate entity. From there you have to start.
No. All we can start from a dually selectively focuses.
All this to okay, do that. Yeah. All this to establish the usefulness of Shastra.
Yeah. All this is to establish the usefulness of Shastra, but the validity of Shastra, it's having the nature of being a pramana, is not established by saying that the jiva and so on are real.
Om Swamiji. Sorry, I was delayed.
As a pramana, it must reveal what is anadigata. Anadigata. That is, it should produce knowledge which cannot be gathered by sense organs and other pramanas based on perception. And abadita, that cannot be negated.
Abadita means that cannot be negated.
If it can be negated, it is not jnana. The validity of the Shastra depends upon whether it produces knowledge. When you say that there is a difference between Jiva and Ishvara, it is not something that you perceive. You do not see Ishvara as another person, because of which you conclude that he is different from you. So by what means of knowledge do you establish a division? You may say that you feel that you have a sense of individuality, but you cannot say that you are separate from Ishvara unless you see two individuals and identify yourself as one of them but not the other. If you say that between Jiva and creation there is a difference, we can analyze that and see how much of a difference there is. But if you say there is a difference between Jiva and Ishvara, when did you see Ishvara to arrive at this conclusion? Shastra is the only pramana for Ishvara, and Shastra says that there is no difference between Jiva and Ishvara.
Even the jiva have some.
Yeah, there are two. The thing is that, see, these are all from the arguments are emanating from the schools of thought. Schools of thought, they have lot of assumptions which are unproven logically or either by the Shastra. They don't take Shastra as a pramana. They have some logical, starting point. Somewhere they start. They assume that Ishvara is there. How we look at it, they don't have an answer. They will say no, a lot of things are happening. Yeah, that is what a lot of things are happening. But is it because there is an Ishvara separate? A lot of things are happening by a niyati, by an order and all that. You have to analyze that. That's what he says. You have to analyze that. Just cannot give it a name and forget it. That way you cannot do that. You have to understand, analyze and understand. And second thing also, when we started the para, it says all this is to establish the usefulness of Shastra. So, the validity of Shastra as a pramana, it need not be because Jiva is the real. To assume that it is you are real, and Ishvara is real, sitting somewhere, you are different from Ishvara, you are different from the other person. All these are assumptions. Just because the assumptions only, if they are real, only pramana will be useful. No. As of now, pramana means what? You have a problem. Pramana is trying to solve it. Whether it is real or not, when we go into the pramana, we will know. Before starting only, you don't discount the pramana. So, assuming certain things that I am real, Jiva, Ishvara is real, And so if only I am real and Ishvara is real, I will go into Pramana. No. Pramana means must have the Shraddha, to approach it with open heart, open-mindedness. So a lot of things I have assumed you can't do that. So you approach the Pramana with a lot of surrender and Shraddha. Just like you appreciate the color that eyes throw up. You don't question the color. Your eyes throw up some color, you say, okay, accordingly you deal with it. But you don't question the eyes when it is having some fault, you go to the doctor and get it rectified. That's a different thing. But once, like even buying a mirror, once you have bought it and verified its validity, thereafter you don't question it. You surrender to it. Likewise, any other pramana. Likewise, this pramana also, you have to approach it with a lot of surrender and shraddha. Find out what it has got to say. Don't start with certain assumptions, which it does not say. So that's what he is saying. He is trying to say how to approach a pramana. How to approach a pramana for you to get a proper understanding, proper value from that pramana. That shraddha has to be there. Because this pramana is not something simple. It is talking about your fundamental problem. You have already decided that you assumed, you used up all the other pramanas and you have not arrived at any solution for your fundamental problem of limitation. Now we have come to pramana, but that is where we are looking at the pramana's validity from the other, other schools of thought. First they are denying that all the schools of thought, their way of approach is wrong. That Sankara and the Shastra makes it very clear. Then once that is clear, thereafter we can go into the pramana. Now we are in that stage where it says that Kshetrajna, Shastra, the pramana says, Kshetrajna is there in all. That's what Bhagavan has told. Kshetrajnam chap Viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Even that they are questioning. That means there is no Shraddha. That's what he is trying to make out. Yeah.
Even the jiva as the one who indwells the physical body has no particular form that you can identify and distinguish as different from Ishvara. Based upon form, it is not possible to establish a difference as we can between a pot and a cloth. What about establishing the difference in terms of property? A lump of camphor and a lump of salt are indistinguishable in form but have very different properties. Similarly, though there may not be any difference in form between Jiva and Ishvara, perhaps there is some difference in quality. The Shastra says that Ishvara is omniscient and omnipotent, and our experience of ourselves as individuals is of having limited knowledge and power. But the Shastra also says that Ishvara is free from all attributes and of the nature of Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. It goes on to say that Atma also is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma and is therefore not separate from Ishvara. The difference in knowledge, power and so on between Jiva and Ishvara does not establish a difference that can be established only when there are two different entities. If the two in truth are one and seem different because of the upadhi, that does not constitute a real difference. If the two in truth are one and seem different because of the upadhi, that does not constitute a real difference. What is that? What does that mean?
Yeah, upadhi meaning the body, mind, sense complex. Because of the difference in capabilities of your body, mind and sense, and seems to be the capability of a Shakti, which is overpowering the Shakti of your body, mind, senses. That even though you feel the difference, you can't say there is a difference between Jiva and Ishvara because it is only because of the Upadhi. Upadhi meaning body, mind, sense complex, which is not, you are observing that. You are observing your body, mind, sense complex, means it's not you. You can't assume that Upadhi is me and say I am different from Ishvara.
Okay.
That is the thing, that the whole thing is identification with the Upadhi. You give it a name called Upadhi, very fact that Upadhi means what? Upasamipe tishtati. You go into the real meaning. But here they just use a Sanskrit word. Suppose you say it's an adjunct or an instrument. You can't say I am the instrument.
Okay.
You can't call something body as an instrument and say I am the instrument.
Yes.
You can't say mind is an instrument and say I am the mind. So the basic problem is one of identification. Even though there is a difference between your body, mind, sense and complex and the niyati or the order, which seems to be very overpowering. There's a difference. But that difference does not say there's a difference between you and Ishvara. Because you have assumed things. It's not so. Shiva is not Upadi. And Ishvara also is not Upadi. It's all happening in one set. I have always been telling. It's all one set of Panchabhuta, inside, outside, continuously changing all the time. That's all one set, one niyati, order. Either Bhagavan claims ownership for that, nor you can claim. It's all continuously happening. Only what you can claim ownership is right now, what you are talking, that yes, I am talking, I am saying, that's all you can say. The same way, Ishvara, he does not have to say all that, he knows very well. That's why he said, Kshetrajnam Chapimam Viti. In your being, Kshetrajna, I am very much sitting there as a being. You do not identify. I am very safe. I don't identify either with your body or any body that is outside. Kshetrajna, he says, I am the Kshetrajna, the being. You have to recognize that. Then the Jiva and Ishvara become one and the same. If you don't recognize, you have to apply the pramana and find out. You cannot assume things. The Jiva and Ishvara are separate. Jiva is omniscient, Ishvara is omniscient, I am nobody, I am a limited fellow. All these things are assumptions. It's not pramana vichara. It is all guru vichara. That's what he is trying to say. Yeah.
1 minute, Swami. Ishvara cannot be a separate entity and still be omniscient, sarvajñatva, because a separate entity requires a body and a mind of his own. If he has a mind, he will have only one thought at a time and ignorance of everything else, and therefore cannot have omniscience, sarvajñatva. Similarly, omnipotence cannot be established if Ishvara is an entity separate from you, because then he does not have your power. Now he argues that though they are different neither in form nor in quality, they may still be two different entities, like two identical parts. Then Ishvara is also...
argument is of the Purvaksha. He is arguing. Yeah.
Then Ishvara is also a Jiva going against Shastra, which says one alone and non-dual, ekam eva advitiyam. It is only through Shastra that you know Ishvara, and Shastra gives no room for Ishvara being an entity or for there being any second thing. In fact, if you begin to analyze it, you cannot prove the existence of another object at all in this world. The existence of another entity is all from a point of view. Let us take the physical body. Is it separate from the physical universe? If not, how can you show that it is one entity and the physical universe another? So it looks as though it is separate from the physical universe. But in the physical universe, what is it that you are aware of which is separate from the very vritti because of which you are aware of? The object is not separate from the vritti because of which you are aware of the object. In this way, you definitely cannot establish a second entity. If you then try to establish a difference between the knower, jnata, and the vritti, you have to establish that they are really two different things. But once you are able to appreciate that the nature of both the jnata and vritti is one consciousness, where is the second thing? Swamiji, can you explain this? Because vritti,
see, there are two ways you can look at it. One is, here he is talking about the physical body. See, the physical body is made up of whatever you call it, bones, marrows, any blood, cells and all that. If you really fundamentally probe them into the what is innermost thing, there is only what you call the niyati, the consciousness, which is building up a cell within the cell, within the cell, within the cell and all that. Whole thing is an order. But you call it you give it a name. This is this cell, this is that cell, then this is bone marrow, this is etc. etc. Like you keep on giving name and form. Whereas what is there is only every name can be split into namni, namani, namni, namani. Keep on splitting. Fundamentally, it's all one consciousness only. That is your body. The same thing with every other body and even the Jagat. So, from that angle also, there is no second thing, there is only consciousness. The second thing he is talking about is vritti. What is vritti? You say that this is my body, this is my hand, this is the tree, which I have been generally telling, this is tree and all. If you analyze, what is the tree? Tree is the name. And what you see is only the consciousness taking the form of the tree. Whereas tree is a name given to it. And if you go further, okay, the tree is made up of branches. The consciousness is aware of that. It is made up of leaves, consciousness is aware of that. So finally they say, if they are all put together, mango tree has come like this, it will be shaped like this, the leaves will be five leaves will be there in a branch, whatever it is. Everything is a niyati. You are aware of that. That is called vritti. That vritti is being lit by the consciousness. So finally, what you think, what is perceived, vritti, other things outside, inside, etc., are all nothing but all-pervading consciousness, which is nothing but the being, which is nothing but the kshetrajna. So, what he says is, there is nothing else. There is no second thing other than the kshetrajna. Then where is the question of your difference between Jiva and Ishvara and etc., Nyata, Nayam, Jnanam, and all that? It's all for vocabulary, for transaction, for communication we are using. The reality is, finally all of this you have to drop and come to consciousness and stay there.
Yes, yes.
I used to use the word conscious being, the awareful being. Swamiji uses the word consciousness because he keeps changing. Long years back he used to use awareful being. But later he also, because he says every word by constant usage it becomes abused. People start thinking, they get fixated on that. So you have to change it. You have to change and explain it. But the thing you can use the word because in English, it is here what we are using the word jnata, vritti and something else and all that we use. But there is a phonetic meaning and all. The vritti means it is other than the pratiti, which I have mentioned in my talk and all.
Yes,
what you see actually is pratiti is only a stimuli. That you convert into vritti because of your samskara. You have seen a tree before, so you call it a tree, and you say tree is a vritti. But actually what you see is only reflected light. And Swamiji also will not say it is reflected light. He will say it's only light of consciousness. Reflection is a word you use to communicate. So all these things are, so you have to deny. You use a word, deny its relative meaning. Use a word, deny its relative meaning. Use a word, deny its neti it is. And finally, what is left is only the negator. Negator is you, the kshetrajna, the conscious being. That is what he is trying to establish. Here he has used that jnata and vritti is one consciousness, where is the second thing?
Okay. Perhaps though they are the same, they have their own qualities like air and fire. Both of these are elements, but air has its own property, touch, sparsha, and fire has its own property of form, rupa. Similarly, Ishvara has all auspicious qualities, kalyana gunas, while the jiva has only some. This raises the same difficulties we saw before. If Ishvara has qualities, he becomes another entity, and Shastra offers no support for the idea that Ishvara has qualities, but on the other hand says he is nirguna as his Atma. Since there are no qualities, there is no possibility of there being a difference in terms of quality. Then he suggests that though there is no difference in terms of form or quality, perhaps there is a difference in name as between a gatha and kalasha, both of which mean pot. Yes, that is acceptable. With reference to one upadhi, limitless consciousness is called Ishvara, and with reference to another, he is Jiva. It is exactly like the same person being called father from one standpoint and son from another. Similarly, the same Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, conditioned by a given Antakarana, is called Jiva, and conditioned by Maya Upadhi is called Ishvara. The difference, however, does not mean anything because you reckon only the Vastu and not the Avastu. Thus, there is no tenability in the conclusion that Ishvara is a separate entity. As a further argument, the separatist says that the very fact that you find it necessary to establish that there is oneness of Jiva and Ishvara presupposes your acceptance of difference. We answer this by saying that our acceptance is only provisional, however. Because difference has been advanced, there is an occasion to show that there is non-difference. From the vision of the ignorant, there can be a difference between Jiva and Ishvara, And as long as there is this ignorance, there will be the occasion for Shastra to remove it. Next, he argues that when we say Ishvara is consciousness conditioned by Maya or endowed with Ubadhi called Maya, while the Jiva is the same consciousness conditioned by Antakarana, we are accepting difference. To this, we respond by saying that pure consciousness does not assume any attribute, no matter what conditions it. When we say that Antakarana is an Upadhi, it must be understood that the Upadhi is not another entity. Being Mithya, it has no existence without Satya Atma. Limitless consciousness cannot be limited by Antakarana and any other Upadhi. It is only
Or any other
seemingly
Upadhi.
or any other Upadhi. It is only seemingly limited, like limitless space is seemingly limited by a pot. If Atma is Purna, whole, how is it going to be limited by the Antakarana or anything? It always remains whole. You place your I in the Antakarana, you then say, I am limited. But if you put your I in consciousness, which is the truth of I, where is the limitation? Therefore, the limitation on the whole is not real, because the difference created by a pot or a room does not make any real difference to space. Similarly, if Maya Upadhi is different from Antakarana Upadhi, the difference is in the Upadhi alone and not in the Vastu. No Vastu is made different by Upadhi. That is why it is called Upadhi. If a crystal appears red because it is near a red flower, the flower has not created any real change in the crystal. If it does cause a change, it is not an Upadhi.
Prashant, do you want to read?
Mr. Venkat also.
Or Venkat?
Why you reading? Doesn't look like you.
Okay,
I think
let
you.
me read. Let me read. Here we should note that. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
One second.
His voice, mic is muted.
Yeah, a little bit not clear for me. That's why I'm wearing. Here we should note. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Here we should note that when we dismiss the notion that there is a difference between Jiva and Ishvara, we are not criticizing a person who is prayerful and is worshipping Ishvara. There is no problem in that. The difficulty is only in trying to establish the reality of the difference. When a person is committed to that view and to convincing the others of it, it has to be discussed, because the assimilation of the vision of non-duality does imply the dismissal of duality, Dvaita. Now, Shankara wants to introduce another topic. To do that, he first sums up what has been said so far, because on that basis a further argument is going to be raised. The objection was raised earlier that if there is identity between Ishvara and the Kshetrajna, then Ishvara will become a samsari. On the other hand, if there is this identity and Ishvara is not a samsari, there will be no samsara, which is against perception. These two defects were already answered by Shankara, and here he summarizes the situation in one sentence. All this is possible because of the difference between knowledge and ignorance. Even though Jiva and Ishvara are one and neither is a samsari, if there is ignorance of the fact,
Of this fact.
and if there is ignorance of this fact, there is samsaritva. Therefore, there is no defect, dosa, and the whole dosha,
Defect, yeah.
dosha, and the whole objection falls apart. It is in order to make the Jiva recognize that he is not a samsari that Bhagavan says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam pitti.
The reality, Kshetrajnam means what? Your body is Kshetra. In Kshetrajnam, and who is inside is the one who knows the Kshetra very much intimately. Who knows your own body very well? You. And that you, he says, I am Kshetrajnam. Cha means indeed. Api. Two nipatas they are using. Cha and api. Why? For emphasis. Mom, with thee. Please understand that the reality of you and reality of me are one and the same. I'm pretty much sitting there. So if once this understanding is, this ignorance is not there, but understanding is there, whether Ishvara is samsari, whether you are samsari and all, question and all doesn't arise, arguments and all do not arise, that he says. Yeah.
The one who knows this does not look upon himself as a samsari. So the difference between knowledge, vidya and ignorance, avidya, is the difference between samsaritva and asamsaritva. By a limitation that is imagined due to ignorance, the vastu that is real is not affected. He again cites the example of the mirage water by which a desert land is not rendered wet. Similarly, if you imagine that there is samsaritva for Atma due to avidya, that samsaritva does not affect Atma. Atma is Ishvara before and after knowledge of that fact. If you know, there is no samsaritva. But it is not that Ishvara becomes a jiva and is then released from samsara by knowledge. Even at the time of ignorance, Atma is not affected, nor does samsaritva becomes its property. But as long as there is ignorance, Atma is mistaken to be a samsari. This repetition is an accepted method of teaching according to the maxim called Simha Avalokana Nyaya. When a lion walks, it takes a few steps forward and then looks back over its shoulder. Similarly, after making a point, you look back and recapitulate or say the same point with more details before you proceed. Only due to avidya is there a samsara for the kshetrajna. In order to make this knowledge more firm, there is a further discussion here according to the Sthano Nikanana Nyaya. Maximum of shaking a pole.
Maxim of shaking a pole.
Maxim of shaking a pole. In order to erect a pole, you place it in a hole and fill the hole with earth. You shake the pole and add more earth to make it firm. Similarly, when you establish a fact, you shake it a little bit by challenging it and meeting that challenge. If you say samsaritva is all projected by ignorance, avidya kalpita, to whom does avidya belong? If it belongs to the kshetrajna, how can this person who has avidya be identical with Ishvara? In accepting that there is samsara due to avidya, you are accepting that the kshetrajna has avidya. That is a defect because once there is avidya, there are all the things that are created by it, sukhitva and dukhitva, birth, death and so on, everything that is directly experienced by us and which we complain about. Because of ignorance alone, we have these problems, and thus if the kshetrajna has ignorance, it's a defect. Shankara asks, is this avidya known or unknown? If you know that Atma is Satchit Anandam Brahma, you have no avidya. If not, you have it, and if that is so, it is known to you or unknown. If it is known, it's an object of knowledge, and as previously was shown, what is known is other than kshetrajna, the one who knows. I have ignorance is a fact that is known to you and therefore belongs to the kshetra. It is not effulgent but inert and therefore known to you.
It is
not self-effulgent but inert and therefore known to you like a pot. Later, when Krishna describes the kshetra in detail, he includes avyakta. This is maya or avidya. Anything that is known to you belongs to the kshetra. There is no defect of it being an attribute of the knower, kshetrajna, or affecting the knower. It is not possible. Let us consider the physical body.
What he says is basically it is belonging to the instrument. Well, since you know that you have ignorance, it belongs to your buddhi. If you don't know, naturally you will identify yourself with the buddhi, so still you will have samsaritva, because you don't know the kshetrajna. Either you should know what is kshetrajna, then once that ignorance goes, then automatically all these things, all ignorance created broods will all go. Sukhitvam, samsaritvam, all of them will go away along with that, once the root cause is removed. But till the time you don't know, you identify with the kshetra as yourself, and kshetra's ignorance, mind's ignorance belongs to you. But fact is, you are kshetrajna other than the kshetra. Even the ignorance, you are observing it, like you know very well, I don't know French, I don't know Japanese and all that. That ignorance does not affect you because it is what is known to you. So when it affects, when you identify yourself with that ignorant, I am the ignorant person, that is samsara. So ignorance is not a problem. Where it belongs? It doesn't belong to the kshetrajna. It belongs to the kshetra, meaning body, mind, sense complex. It's all in the niyati. That is how what we have to understand. That's what he is saying.
Let us consider the physical body. It is subject to aging, but there is no aging for Atma, the kshetrajna, because what belongs to the kshetra is the property of the kshetra. It does not affect the kshetrajna, the one who is conscious. As the sun is not affected by what it illumines, the kshetrajna is not affected by what it illumines.
Including avidya. Including avidya.
It remains always asanga. Shankara elaborates. Any little thing in the host of defects which does not exist at all in the kshetrajna that you create is the property of the kshetra, not the kshetrajna, because it is known. Whatever you impose upon the kshetrajna, sukha or dukkha, mortality or fatness, cannot possibly belong to the kshetrajna because it is known and therefore an object.
Swamiji, can you
complain?
explain? This paragraph is too difficult.
No. The thing is, what he says is, whatever you know is other than you. Simple logic. Whatever you know is other than you. So, if you say I am Sukhi and Dukhi and all that, that means what? You know the Sukhatvam and Dukkhitam, so neither belong to you. It is only belonging to either what you call, you take your emotional situation or a body situation or an external situation and give a value to it, that because of that I am Sukhi and all that. It's all based on the basic identification of the kshetra with the kshetrajna. You take yourself to be the kshetra and all associated things you identify upon yourself, and that is going to keep changing. So whatever it is belonging to kshetra is always known to you. The logic he uses is, whatever is known to you is other than you. Simple. So, whereas you is the knower, the conscious, which is being conscious of whatever is known and unknown and sukha, dukkha, all those things. So, because you don't identify yourself, kshetrajna as is defined here is what is that knows the kshetra, like the name itself. Kshetrajna means what? Kshetra is all other things. Jna means the one who knows. So kshetrajna means one who knows all that is happening to the kshetra. So anything that is happening to your body, mind or senses, everything, you cannot assume it to yourself. So a sense of mortality or fatness, sukha, dukkha is not belonging to kshetrajna, it is belonging to the known. Known means kshetra. That's what he says. He is explaining here. So that identification is the problem right from beginning. The whole Shastra is about the identification. You have to understand. So the identification happens because by default, by habit, we have grown like that. We have been identifying, we don't know our own identity other than our body, mind, senses. So that is, and whatever it is, the mind means it throws emotions, it throws sukhitvam, dukkitvam, and it shows ego. All that belongs to the mind. Body, pain, and all that. It sends a stimuli to the nervous system. So you say it's painful. Then you say, because that you process it further, paining, then you become sad. So all those things. So the whole thing is a process of perpetuating an error in terms of identifying ourselves with our body, mind and sense complex and whatever it throws up. And what it throws up, it's all only from outside. Paranchikani vitirnat swayambhuhu. Parang pasyati na antaratma. In the sense, the whole system is designed to keep on projecting outside and taking all the inputs and make a vritti out of it and make a world out of it. So that is a very, very famous statement in Gita. Paranchikani, it's all things, body, mind, senses are all totally projected outside all the time. And that way create a world. Moment you create a world. So, Paranchikani vitirnat swayambhuhu, Parang pasyati all the time, na antaratma. So, because you don't do it, you have been doing this all the while, you have forgotten your reality. You think that the world which you have seen being with is totally identified, that becomes your reality. That is why you say sukha, dukkha, mortality, fatness, etc., etc. So, that is what he is saying, that by doing this one particular sentence, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vitti sarva kshetreshu bharata, Bhagavan So Bhagavan's words is made it very clear to Arjuna's question, what is the difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna? The same is the difference between Purusha and Prakriti, Jnanam and Jnayam. 3 sets of questions he had asked. But he has taken up Kshetra and Kshetrajna by explaining this, the other two are already explained. But still, he goes on explaining now with various arguments. People, because this is the argument of the Dvaitis also, they assume that you are different from Ishvara and all that. They don't accept that the Kshetrajna, within you is the Kshetrajna of Ishvara. They just look at it as blasphemy. How can you be Ishvara? They will go and take a bath after listening to this lecture. That is the sort of situation. Yeah.
When you
Probably
complain
that
about being a
means
samsari,
no. That means if the Vishnu Sahasranamam is known, it is known only to the Kshetrajna.
Yeah, the whole thing is Ishvara's Vibhuti only. The whole thing, if you look at it, there are 3, as I already told you, there are 3 sets of namas in that. One is Vedanta Nama. It gives if you really look at it, there will be whatever Kshetrajna, it will discuss about that. Then there is Alankara Nama. This is for the purpose of worship. Okay, you put an Alankara and you worship for that sort of a Nama. And then otherwise Niyati. Niyati means how it is connecting, how the world is being affected by the Ishvara's Vibhuti and how the Niyati, how the orders are performed. So 3 types of names will be there. But essentially, if you really look into it, the Niyati is nothing but the Chaitanya. The Vibhutis are nothing but the Chaitanya. The Vedanta Swarupa Kshetrajna is nothing but Chaitanya Kshetrajna. So all thing is only the Vibhuti. Like it helps you, Vishnu Nama or any Nama properly. It has come from the Vedic period, like Sudram and all that. It only tells you that this is how I am. This is how, which I have told before also, this is how the awareful being, the conscious being, which is Desakala Vastu Aparichinnam, when it explodes, this is what you get. The whole world. Sadeva Soumya Idam Agre Asi, Sandhogya Upanishad. Sadeva. This is how it has always been, this is how it is, this is how it will be. The whole thing is Sat only, that's you. And last year it was like this, there were not so many wars, now this year so many wars are there and all that. The same last year the word Sat is the same this now also. That is gone, there is no this. You have a memory and you go back. You say that 2 years back it happened like that. That is all is the problem of the Kshetra, the memory, mind and all. The mind is useful for you to do your work properly, go to your work properly, chronological time, don't eat your lunch twice and all that. But what you do, you use this memory to go back in time and connect yourself with the world situation 1 year back and now and later, Bhutam, Bhavishyam and all that. And say you make a big issue of it. As far as Sat is concerned, there is only Sat. The presence is the only reality. This is how I am. This is how the being is all the time. If at all there are changes, it's all changes, it's all my Vibhuti. It's all happening within the Niyati. And change itself is a product of time and space. And time and space itself is me only. So that is the final understanding. If you really probe, this is how the answers will come from the Shastra. And that's good, that probing is necessary. But you have to, every time you have to go through all these arguments, get it under your understanding clarified, then you stay content. Then you are not buffeted by all these things. Whatever happens, you just sail along. Don't get whatever. That is important. Yeah.
when you complain about being a samsari and having of sukhitva, dukhitva, kartrutva, bhoktrutva and so on, are all these various defects that you superimpose upon Atma known to you or not? If they are unknown to you, as in deep sleep, you have no problem. If they are known to you, you have no problem because those defects belong to the kshetra, not to you, the knower. Then how is it that we experience ourselves as having samsara? The problem is due to lack of understanding of Atma and Anatma. The entire group of limitations that is superimposed upon the kshetrajna has the status of being known. That being so, It is purely the property of the kshetra, not the kshetrajna. Perhaps it is possible due to association. Water, for example, even though is orderless and colorless, takes on the properties of the earth by association. Similarly, perhaps the kshetrajna, even though free from the kshetra, can take on its properties because of association. The kshetrajna is available in the body, the kshetra after all. Could its properties not get transferred to the kshetrajna? No. You are conscious of not only avidya, but of everything that is created by it and the one who is conscious. The kshetrajna is not affected by anything that he is conscious of. Although we give the example of the sun not being affected by what it illumines, there is no example that is adequate to illustrate this, because the kshetrajna is satya and what is known, the kshetra is mithya. How
that
is
is why
mithya?
it is called, no? That is why Atma is called Atma Upamyena. Upamana for Atma is only Atma. You can't even Upamana, you cannot even give sun as an example. Akasa also is example, because Akasa is in Atma, but Atma is not in Akasa. So all those things, but they will use somewhat very close to the example like sun, Akasa and all that, so that we can get some understanding as to what this Kshetrajna Atma is all about. Yeah.
How is mithya going to affect satya, upon which it depends for its very existence? There is no association possible between an object that is known to you and the truth of the knower. It is like an association between you and your shadow. Further, they are opposed to each other. What relationship can there be between two things that are mutually contradictory? Between the meaning of the word I and the meaning of the word this, there is no association, because one is conscious and the other is object of consciousness. The light that illumines an object does not combine with and assume the characteristics of that object. On the other hand, because of the light, the object is seen. When you do a puja or commit a homicide under the light,
whether you do a puja,
whether you do a puja or commit a suicide, under the light, commit a homicide under the light, none of the consequences fall to the light. Therefore, even by association, there cannot be any problem for the kshetrajna. Further, if there is an association, the object of knowledge becomes one with the knower and the knower becomes known. When that is so, who is to know that? Any kind of association or identities.
Who is to know what?
When that is so, who is to know what? Any kind of association or identity is not possible at all, because there will be no knower. Suppose having avidya and its products, dukkitva, sukhitva and so on, are the attributes of Atma, then how, as the opponent claimed earlier, are they directly experienced? Atma is the one who illumines everything. How can it be the knower and at the same time the known? You cannot say that these things are directly experienced and at the same time are the properties of Atma, the kshetrajna. Uncle, you want to read?
One thing, no, you must always get back. You must always reconcile with that understanding what we have gone through from the second chapter and all that. And also, which we have been generally extensively discussing in our discussions, that the reality of Atma being Desha Kala Vastu Aparichinnam, changeless, Niravayavam. So all this, if you are able to visualize that, you know what is not having any limbs, how can it get associated with any of these things? It's all not possible. Only when there is a limbed object, limbed thing, will get into all the problems of Sukha, Dukkha and all that. When there is no limb, there is no Desha Kala, it's not even bound by time or space, not even a thing, it's just the being. That itself should be able to say that the reality levels between Kshetrajna and Kshetra are totally different. Kshetra is always changing, limbed, born in time, going in time, all the time varying, and it has its Jadam itself being known only through the being. So all these things, once is understanding the differentiation between whatever we deal with in life and your reality, if that is becoming more and more clear, then this answers this way in which Kshetra and Kshetrajnam are being clearly demarked and explained, will also make it very clear to us. Simultaneously, you must keep that in view. Then it will be easier to understand. Yeah.
Simply expressed, what we have to understand, Shankara says, is Neyam cha sarvam kshetram. Kshetra is everything that is known. When it is ascertained that ignorance and the status of being dukhi and so on are the property, dharma of the kshetrajna, then to say it is directly experienced by me even though it is not possible is a contradiction that arises purely due to avidya. When you say you are a samsari, it is due to avidya. The samsari is centered on Atma and has its basis only in Atma. Everything, the entire kshetra, has its basis in Atma, Atma being Satya and everything else being Mithya. They are not parallel realities but only one Vastu, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Being dependent upon Atma, the Vastu ignorance is Mithya. Otherwise it would not go. We are not saying that avidya has no existence. Depending upon the Atma, it exists as long as it is there. And being self-ignorance, it cannot go by any pramana other than Shruti, because any other pramana is handled by the knower. He has only perception, pratyaksha, and inference, anumana, both of which can operate with reference to objects, anatma. Know the swarupa of the knower, Atma. To know the swarupa of the knower Atma, you are equipped with no means of knowledge, and therefore Shruti alone is the pramana.
That was the yesterday's topic. That was yesterday's topic of whole talk, evening talk. Yeah.
Uncle, you want to read, Uncle? Venkat Uncle?
Prashant, actually here some relatives have come. There's too much noise, background noise.
Okay, fine. Another question is raised here. If the Kshetrajna has the attributes of Satchitananda, are they not known as objects? If they are not known by the Kshetrajna, they become non-existent. Satchit and Ananda, as we have seen, are not the attributes of Atma. They are Atma. The word Ananta, which is synonymous with the word Ananda, which is synonymous with Ananta, is a source of great confusion here. Ananda here is not bliss but limitlessness. Wherever there is Sukha, there is certain fullness, which is the Shastra's intended meaning of the word Ananda. It is not the dharma of Atma, but its very Swarupa. The Shruti also points out that Atma is free from attributes, Nirguna. Further, if Satchit and Ananda becomes the attributes of Atma, then what is Atma without these attributes? What is its Swarupa? The Swarupa of Atma is existence, consciousness that is limitlessness.
I'll read, Prashant.
Yeah.
The problem arises because Ananda, in the sense of happiness, is experienced by the knower. This Ananda cannot be the Swarupa of the Kshetrajna because it involves the duality of the experiencer and the experienced. Wherever there is Ananda, in the sense of real fullness, there is no second thing. If there is, it is less than fullness. In fullness, there is no question of saying, I experience Ananda, in the way that one can say, I see a pot, because Ananda never becomes an object. It is always the Swarupa of Atma. Whenever there is the experience of being pleased or happy, the Antakarana assumes the form of a vritti in which the seeker sought division is temporarily resolved. At this time, the Sukha experienced is a property of Antakarana, whereas the Ananda that is present there is the Swarupa of Atma. It is the same with any experience. The vritti of a pot is the Antakarana dharma, and the consciousness Chaitanya pervading the vritti is the Swarupa. The Nama Rupa belong to the Antakarana, but the existence, Satya belongs to the Swarupa. Any Sukha experience is a particular vritti of the Antakarana in which Ananda, limitlessness, is to be recognized as the Swarupa. Though we define Atma as Satchit Ananda, it is purely an object-free consciousness. It has no particular attribute and is invariable in all forms of experience which are dependent upon Sat Chit Ananda Atma. They are not known because they are not objects. If anyone says that The Kshetrajna is affected by the Kshetra dharma that is purely due to avidya. The questions, whose avidya is it? Where does it exist? Is it connected to anatma or atma? Are all raised by the dualist in an attempt to dismiss avidya as the cause of samsara. This is because if samsara is due to avidya, everything becomes mithya and advaita is automatically established. But if avidya is not accepted as the cause for this samsara, then dvaita can be established, and it therefore becomes important for him to show that avidya does not exist. This is his question: what is the location of avidya? Is it in atma or anatma, self or not self? He continues, avidya can exist only in a conscious being. A table does not have any sense of being ignorant, because to know one's ignorance, one must be conscious. Since Atma, according to you, is pure consciousness, it has no connection to avidya. Anatma, being insentient, cannot be the location for ignorance either. Shankara gives a very drastic answer to this. He says that this avidya belongs to the one who asks, where is avidya? He does not say here that it is located in Atma or Anatma, but simply says that it belongs to the one for whom the avidya is seen, but its location is to be known. It is obvious avidya belongs to the person who sees it, meaning it is located in that person by whom it is recognized. If ignorance is seen, the seer of the ignorance, the one who has avidya, is also recognized. Whether you say I have ignorance or he has ignorance, ignorance is seen. If you see someone with a stick in hand, you need not ask who has the stick. The question is meaningless because both the stick and the possessor of the stick are seen simultaneously. Similarly, if the ignorance is seen, the one who has it is also recognized. If you see the ignorance, you have it, and to ask to whom does this ignorance belong is improper. The very recognition of the ignorance is recognition of the person who has it. Now, an objection is raised against the cited example. When I see a man with a stick, I see both the possessor, the man, and the possession, the stick. Whereas ignorance and the one who has it are not seen directly by me. Then we ask, how does he know that there is ignorance? If they are directly perceived, he claims the question will be meaningless. But they are not. Naturally, I want to know to whom does this ignorance belong. How can you say my question is meaningless? Shankara responds to this with a question of his own. If I answered your question and the connection between the ignorance and the ignorant becomes known to you indirectly through my words, what is accomplished by you? To which the opponent answers that if all samsara is due to avidya, it should be removed, and therefore he wants to know. Then Shankara says, since you do not see ignorance directly, why do you bother about it? Whoever sees ignorance directly has to remove it. Then the opponent acknowledges that avidya belongs to him and he wants to remove it. That being so, Shankara's original statement stands. You know avidya and therefore you are the one who has it. If you see it directly, it certainly belongs to you, and it is not legitimate to ask to whom does it belong. If you ask how to remove avidya, the avidya, that is a valid question. Any ignorance, whether it is avidya that is the cause of samsara or avidya of a particle, will go in the wake of knowledge. Therefore, all you need to ask is, what is this Atma? The only one that does not need...
This also we have discussed this before also. I have told very clearly. All of us, basically our buddhi is born with a clean slate. So anything, whether it is a particle or your own understanding, you have to only ask the question. Unless you want to know, nobody is not going to jump on you. So anything, any small, that is why right from beginning what we are interested in knowing how to walk, how to go to mother and eat food, how to turn, how to go out and play, but how to respond to our name, how to wear our uniform. Like that only we growing. All the time we are growing, knowing. We are so busy knowing, we never looked at the question, who am I? So at the end of it later, when the Shastra says you don't know yourself as avidya, you get shocked. How can I not know myself? I'm intelligent, I've got so many degrees, I've got so much qualification, and I've got so many money and all that. All that doesn't help you to know yourself, because all those are paranchikani vidirna swayambhuvu param pasyati na antaratma. So it doesn't, if you follow knowing Atma, you have to ask what it is, what is your reality. And since you have not asked that question, you don't know. So the avidya belongs to the person who asks, where is avidya? And the very fact that we are discussing that we are samsari, kshetrajna and kshetra, we are not able to differentiate, that ignorance is there. For that ignorance to go, you have to approach the Shastra, what it has to say, rather than finding out, no, Vidya is not there, Samsaritvam is not there, but at the same time complaining that I am Sukhi, Dukhi is there, I am also Sukhi, Bhagavan only can bless me, all those things. So going into the fundamentals of it, that they are clarifying very clearly now. So it's all very obvious in the sense, if we really look at ourselves, it's all very obvious. But if you don't want to be honest with ourselves, of course, this sort of a Purva-Paksha Siddhanta, maybe it is created just to create that awareness in us. Maybe the students also were asking and Shankara was answering, so that all the clarity comes by vichara. This is also vichara, basically. That Mimamsa is being done through test of questions and answers. Maybe the questioner also knows what is the answer. The person, Shankara, also knew what is the answer. But still, for the benefit of us, all these have been listed. That way also we can look at Purva-Paksha Siddhanta, question and answer. But fundamentally also, we must examine ourselves. On the basis of whatever you have discussed till now, it's all very clear that ignorance is a major issue. And ignorance is one thing that only goes, it doesn't know how to come. Because we, as I said, it's all, ignorance is not something, an object. It is something about which you don't have a knowledge. Because you have not asked for it, period. No other reason. Why you don't know means I have not attended to it till now. So why, like you know, very simple, I know 2 languages, I don't know 3 languages. Why I have not learned that? These 2 I have learned. So you can't ask why I don't know. Why I don't know? Because you never made an attempt to know, that's it. The same way Atma also. Your reality, you never attempted to know because you assume a lot of things. And you have come all the way, but that assumption does not go, it's your own reality. It is not about not knowing French, it doesn't matter. You can still live peacefully. But not knowing yourself, you will assume it. Because here the problem is not only not knowing, but also knowing it differently. In the sense, if you don't know yourself correctly, you will know yourself wrongly. Because you cannot live in a vacuum, because you are very much there. Every day transacting with the world. So when you know yourself wrongly, you are going to make wrong things, wrong assumptions about yourself in your interaction. So it's all one what is called one error confounded further. Simple error getting confounded more and more, and life becomes complicated. Then all your skipum and all that. So it's all, now we are looking at it all afresh, saying that how to get rid of it. In spite of all our efforts, things are not happening. Then Shastra says, oh, come on, now just have a look at yourself. What it is, I will explain to you. Bhagavan himself explains through the Gita. Kshetrajnam chapi mam miti sarva kshetresu bharata. That is your reality. That is my reality. Everything else is kshetra. Kshetra meaning continuously changing. What is known to you and what is known to me. So that is how we are going over it. Since when he says avidya, even though he is asking that question, it is very obvious. Because of avidya only, if you don't know yourself only, you are looking at yourself as a samsari. Whereas Bhagavan says, I am sitting in you and I am a samsari, how can you be samsari? So that is his question. And because of avidya, then no, Shastram Patar. Finally what is this? You understand. Simple. The question, how do you understand? Ask questions, get clarity, what is your reality. Then you will get rid of this ignorance. When the ignorance goes automatically, you don't have to establish Kshetrajnana, it's already there. You just have to remove the ignorance. Then fortunately in this case, there is no, like for example, even there is a Even if there is a lighted object outside, an apple is there, you have to, your eyes have to see, and then Palavyapti will be there. Even though that it is lighted already, you have to have both the Vritti Vyapti and Palavyapti. Meaning, you have to know the object as the Palam, and you have to apply your, there should be a light that is lighting it up. Whereas in this particular case, it is about you. And it is finally it is Desakala Vastu Aparichinam, meaning it will not be lighted. Once you remove the avidya, once the ignorance is gone, you are already lighted. There is no palam, separate vyapti is not necessary. One don't have to go inside, put a torchlight and see. So you have to just remove the ignorance. So the job is much simpler in knowing Atma rather than knowing other things. So that is how the Shastra talks about. Anyway, let us see. So we'll start. From where? What is where you
The only one that is.
That's not
What
to
is this
start.
Atma? What is this Atma? Yeah. Okay.
पूर्णमिदं पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम्